All right, everybody back. Appreciate that you had a little bit of break. I am here with Mr. Fulton, and he is going to do a little roaming around the room and have a little bit of a discussion with you guys and about your IHS stories. So,
well, perfect. I appreciate it. First, because every good salesman will make a sales pitch and ask something of you, I will remind you that we've got a reception at 4 o'clock following this event, and that is your opportunity. There will be several politicals from across HHS, heads of operating divisions, their chief of staff, so aka the shadow heads of the operating divisions, the people who really make the machine run. We will have, I know there's some congressionals coming up, there's some congressional staffers coming over. Additionally, we've got other federal agencies coming over. So we've talked about, working and finding those opportunities to make impacts on Indian health. There's a great time to network and connect with the people that you want to talk to about how do we make the federal government work in totality for those initiatives. So I did want to flag our reception at 4 o'clock following this event. Now, a couple things, we want to hear about from you and hear about your IHS story. We've all largely grown up in the system. We've engaged with the system. We've got employees. I would love to hear some of your favorite stories of working at IHS. I know we've got patients who've done different work, but I'll say the level of connectedness that people feel to IHS clinics is extraordinary. Probably last summer, my wife, who's from Choctaw Nation, she's a Choctaw citizen down there, and we live in the suburbs of Tulsa, so about 2 hours away from the Tallahena hospital that Miss Four-Killer was just talking about. And she's like, oh, hey, I'm off on Monday. I'm going to go to the doctor. I was like, oh, okay, but the Creek Clinic's 5 miles down the road. You're taking off the whole day? She was like, oh, no, I'm going down to Tallahena. To this day, she probably hasn't lived down there for 10 years. She drives past the Big Nice Creek Hospital, drives past the Cherokee Hospital at Tahlequah, and drives another hour and a half because that is where she's connected. That is where she's felt at home. That's where she has always gone. And she drives past a number of private hospitals and clinics that she could take our good insurance and go to at any moment because that's where she feels at home. That's where she's always got care, and that's what keeps her connected to the system. And I think that's just such a funny story of how we interact with the system and how it is actually just very different than other ways people experience healthcare. So there's my little fun tidbit, but I would love to hear your story of either working in IHS, being at IHS clinic. What is something that has been a resounding success? If you've got a couple funny ones, I would love to hear this because this is our system that we use. So anybody have anything to share? Ooh, Dr. Hartwig. We'll put her in the hot seat. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what tribe you're from.
Should I stand up so they can see me? Tatalach. I'm Kim Hartwig. I'm a board-certified family physician, member of the Nez Perce tribe. I am a political appointee by RFK as the Director of Strategic Initiatives assigned to IHS. I remember growing up in a single-wide health facility on the hill in our community in Lapwai, Idaho. And we were the Northern Idaho Agency, and the Coeur d'Alene tribe, which was about an hour and a half north, had to drive down to our facility to be seen. And we had 3 exam rooms. You could hear all the conversation from one end of the trailer to the next. Medical records was down below. I don't think that we had x-ray at the time, but my tribe has since compacted, and we have a 638 facility that's beautiful. We have actually a satellite facility in one of our other communities 60 miles southeast, and just really proud of where my tribe has been able to bring health care. So, Katsiaya.
Perfect, thank you. All right, anybody else have an IHS story they want to share about their either careers of service, as a patient? Come on, we've got 1,000 years of IHS experience in here, and we only got one funny story? I'm just going to randomly select somebody if we're not careful. Lyle, tell us what your favorite IHS story is and why you dress so dapper at every event.
Hi, my name's Lyle Claw, the acting area director for Alaska. I don't have a funny story, but I have a story that's probably all too common around the areas we serve. I grew up in Window Rock, Arizona, was a troubled teen, like so many back then, and a lot of different types of drugs were going around, and I got tied up in some stuff, and anyway, I ended up dying and had a life after death experience. And when I was on the other side, there was a reality of spirit of the spiritual realm, whatever you want to call it, that I wasn't really aware of at 15, but really quickly I called out to the Creator, and as I was going into this darkness, and I saw myself go on top of the trees over the west side of Window Rock, and over to the neighborhood that we were in, and saw the roof, went through the roof, saw my body on the couch, and went back into my body. And I needed to leave that place, and I prayed. I asked God, I was like, I need to get out of here. And so it was weird. The friend I was staying with, I got a phone call there at their house, and it was my sister, and she's like, hey, Lyle, I was like, first of all, how'd you get this number? And she said, hey, want you to know we just moved up here to Alaska. We have an extra room. If you want to come up here and live with us, you can. I said, if you can get me up there, I'll go. 3 days later, I was there, and I was pretty sick. And I went through a time of healing. Interestingly enough, it was at a CHAP clinic in Copper Center, Alaska, and that CHAP person helped me recover, helped me to get back on my feet. I had dropped out of school for 3 years in high school, and I made up 3 years in 1 year, ended up graduating when I was supposed to. I had a lot of doubters. Didn't give a lot of proof to my parents that they could believe in me, but that was a turning point in my life. And so years go on. I fought fires there in Alaska, joined the Marine Corps, got out. And I was visiting my mom, and we went to this place that it was kind of a weird day, but my mom, she was elderly and want to spend some time with her. And we were walking to Bash's in Window Rock, and said, there's a thing going on about the end of the world. And I was like, oh, what's that about? I was like, oh, it's right across the street. I was like, hey, Mom, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, let's go check it out. So we went over there. And there's a lady talking, and she was talking about drugs and meth, and I was like, what's this lady talking about? This is supposed to be on something else. And anyway, she had borrowed the facility there, and she went over her time. And so she said, who in here has ever been a troubled teen and had experience with this stuff? And so I got up, and I said, me. And so she went up there, and she said, tell your story. I just shared a little bit. But moving on, I went on to share story around a lot of Native communities, even in international. But so Dr. Grimm, your the efforts that you put forward have really helped. I have had interaction with thousands of people that benefited from the ability to share a story that was provided by a lot of the initiatives that you're talking about and that you started. And so I just want to encourage everyone that, life's a full circle. What we do with this short time on this earth, it's important what we take into our bodies. It's important what we eat. It's important what we see, what we hear, what we choose to hear. And I just really want to take the opportunity to highlight the ability that we have in this, with this administration, the funding that's coming, to actually execute. I'm not really into talk. I'm all about execution. And I just want to share, as colleagues, let's try to keep that the focus of hitting the target. Every day, execute best you can. Really, those lives that we touch are so valuable, and potentially you won't see that until you're on the other side. I just have the opportunity to kind of have a different perspective through what I've been through, but I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I look forward to serving however I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyle. We appreciate you sharing your IHS story. Oh, we've got one over here. Perfect. If you will just state your name for the audience and where you hail from.
Hutken squeezed, Leiptis Busken, Wickenchenis Biayat. Badger's my name in our language, and it makes my heart happy to see everyone here. Back in 2003, I ran for my council for the Colville Confederated Tribes, and I was told by my elders if I get nominated for any chair positions to not turn them down. Every year our council reorganizes, so after getting swore in, I was nominated to chair the Health and Human Services Committee for my tribe. Another lady, Lou Anderson, was nominated as well, and we tied 3 times. In our code, it says that they have to flip a coin. So she's my elder, so I always respected our elders, and I says, well, she's my elder, she can call it. She called heads and it landed on tails. The next day, or after that, we had a barbecue, kind of a celebration, and the next day they said, well, they told me, you gotta be in Lincoln City tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Talk to your secretaries, they'll set up your flight and your rental car. And I told my wife, well, I'm gonna have to get ready to go. That was my orientation to council. Well, on those 20 years, Dr. Grimm was the first director I got to meet with. And I wanted to sue IHS. I didn't know that the Indian Health Services was the poorest funded health system in the country. Back then, I believe, and we probably might still be, funded at less than a federal penitentiary inmate is per person. And anyway, when we hired Lloyd Miller to be our attorney, he told us that, well, you probably have the wrong attorneys in court, and you might lose health care for all the tribes in the country. So it might not be a very good idea right now, that we'd be best to spend our money lobbying. So we made lobbying for health care our number one priority for my council and our tribe, and I got on the IHS budget work group and represented Portland, and I've been on that, ever since, all my 20 years on council, was able to co-chair it, co-chaired the contract support cost work group where we put the medical inflation rate into the formula. Sometimes we butted heads with the government, and that was okay. Actually, I apologized to Dr. Grimm one time for giving him, heck at a big meeting. He says, "You don't have to do that, Andy. People need to hear it, what you got to say." To me, it's teamwork. We work together. I'll say this, in front of everybody, the IHS is probably the poorest funded system in the healthcare in the country, but they're the best at what they do in providing healthcare for our people with what little they get. They try to save as many lives as possible, and when tribes take on that responsibility in contracting, some of them even do it better. I've been in this building several times where we were told, "I'm sorry, but you have to go lobby for what you receive." That they can make the recommendations on what we have in a budget, but Congress and Senate, they're the ones that write the bills, and the president signs it. That becomes law. So, right now I work for I'm here on behalf of the Native Project in Spokane and NARA, the urban health centers. And believe me, I'm going to fight for them just as hard as I did when I did for my tribe. We have 2,000 Colville tribal members that utilize the Native Project. That's over 20% of my tribal population. And when urbans only receive 1.2% of the overall IHS budget, they're the poorest health system, funded by the federal government right now. And that kind of makes me worry. I really appreciated what the secretary had to say on how he's going to, try to help us. And I don't know how many directors probably heard me say, Colville can only funnel so many people through 5 doctors. When the Army built our hospital and IHS came about, we got 5 doctors. They're still only at that level, but we got joint venture coming, and that one district's probably going to triple the amount of doctors that we're going to receive, so our population's going to go up. I always kind of was against the line item that give how was it it's Indian Health Improvement Fund, because if you can't really show the need because you only have 5 doctors, you're not going to be able to come up with the adequate numbers to really show that there's a need in your tribe. A lot of direct services tribes are stuck with what they get. And anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for this event. Thank you to our IHS people that are here, and sometimes I'd be in here and they say, well, IHS was one of the federal programs that got an increase. There was times when there was tight budgets. So I'd have to tell them, well, we got a 1% of 20% of need. It's pennies on a dollar, those little increases, but we're grateful at least we made 1%. Thank you.
Thank I appreciate you.
Thank you for those stories. And let's turn our attention to the video.
"70 years ago, a promise took form. In 1955, the Indian Health Service was created, rooted in treaty obligations older than the agency itself. A promise that health care for Native people is not charity, it is a trust responsibility."
We're celebrating 70 years of success and growth for the Indian Health Service. 70 years where they've focused in on just health care for the 574 Indian nations from Alaska to Florida.
For 7 decades, that promise has been carried by people: doctors, nurses, community health representatives, sanitation workers, drivers, administrators, many serving their own communities, showing up day after day, often with limited resources, but unlimited commitment.
I love going into our local Indian Health Service and seeing our own people and then providing us care. Whenever I could look back and see like how foundational Indian Health Service has been in me and my family and our community's life. This is a cornerstone of our community.
The story has never been simple. There have been gaps, underfunding, barriers, and bureaucracy. But something powerful emerged. In 1975, Congress passed the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, or ISDEA. This landmark legislation shifted federal policy, providing authority for tribes to assume operations of IHS and BIA functions directly. Tribes stepped forward. Communities shaped their own systems. Healthcare became tribal sovereignty in action.
So it changed the whole character of the government-to-government relationship, and that allowed us to now manage it the way we felt it should be managed, that was more tuned into our communities.
IHS relies upon critical input from advisory committees, consultations, town halls, and tribal delegation meetings to inform the direction of each tribe's healthcare needs.
I've seen a lot of collaboration and good things come out of Indian Health Service and the tribe working together. Indian Health Service does such a great job of consultations, of understanding tribal sovereignty.
Today, the IHS serves 2.8 million American Indians and Alaska Natives. In rural communities, in cities, across generations, through 44 hospitals and 384 health centers, and working in partnership with 41 urban Indian organizations, supporting over 80 sites.
As the BIA moved more Indians into urban areas, the bigger the need was for urban clinics. And that's what has worked across the nation.
The IHS continues to adapt and modernize in order to provide the best solutions for tribal health care.
In Indian country, we try to solve the problems of today, but we think 7 generations ahead. So the things we're doing is to try to pass it on to the next generation so that they can carry our mission forward, our goals forward, and healthcare fits right into that paradigm.
I believe it can only get better. Working together, collaboration, it's going to get better.
The next 70 years call us forward toward fully funded systems, toward Native-led healthcare solutions, toward wellness that begins before illness. The future of Native health is being built right now. We honor those who came before. We thank those who serve today. We commit to those yet to come. Thousands of years of healing knowledge, one shared responsibility.
Today we celebrate 70 years of IHS, and we remember all of those who have paved the way for us.
Congratulations, IHS. Looking forward to the next 70 years.
Congratulations, Indian Health Service, on 7 years for your anniversary. We really appreciate your partnership, and the best is yet to come.
Please welcome back to the stage, Brian Wall.
All right, all right. As the wheels of government often happen, Mr. Cruz was called to a meeting, and so we are doing what we do and pivoting just a little bit here. So I have the opportunity to have a good conversation with Dr. Kim Hartwig and Clayton Fulton up here. So first I'm going to say thank you. What a great video, right? Do you feel proud to be working for IHS at 70 years? My own story is I've only been with the agency for a little over 3 years and had the incredible opportunity to visit some remarkable places with some very caring people, and I've really grown to love working with our folks across the Indian country, and I know you as well as do. So my first question is for Dr. Hartwig, and so we want to have you to tell us a little bit about your journey from basketball star to a doctor and a clinic director and working now at IHS.
Okay. I wasn't expecting the basketball part. But I was born and raised on the Nez Perce Reservation in Lapwai, Idaho. And we won our first state basketball tournament when I was a sophomore in high school. And I got Player of the Year that year. And went on to play Division I basketball at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, California. There's an alumnus. And I didn't play all 4 years because I was really, really homesick. LA was 18 hours. It's an 18-hour drive from Lapwai. I drove it after biochemistry lab my junior year. But knew from a young age that I wanted to be a doctor. My older sister actually was a better basketball player than I was when we were in junior high, and she tore her ACL in a tournament. And at that time, an ACL repair was casted from hip to ankle. And now we move the joint immediately after it's repaired. But if you can imagine a cast being in place for 6 weeks without any movement in that joint, she had a ton of adhesions, really didn't have any mobility, couldn't bend her knee at all, and all of her muscles had atrophied. And after she recovered from that surgery, she was as good as she was before. And I attributed all of her success to the doctor. I've shared this story a lot of times. I'm not sure why apparently I need to share it more. But she was as good as she was after her repair, and I attributed all of her success to the doctor. So I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon and fix knees so kids could return to sport. But as I matured some, I realized that I couldn't help as many people at home being an orthopedic surgeon. So I chose to go into family medicine so I could go home. And that decision was, and I was very naive. I hadn't met a doctor before I decided to go into medicine. I got down to Loyola, and the recruiting was not routine either. Thought I had to major in biology to become a doctor, but loved the math and chemistry. So there was this thing called biochemistry that I was sure combined the two, so that's what I picked. And that sport led me to medicine and helped me along that path, realizing that helping in Indian country was really my true calling, so went home to help And after being home, for a bit, realized that I had an opportunity to help on a greater scale, and was called to DC to interview with RFK. And after they appointed Mark, the special advisor for tribal issues, the day after they appointed him, they called me and said that they wanted me to come be the director of strategic initiatives to help come up with creative ideas from a clinical lens to help elevate healthcare in Indian country, and assign me to IHS.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm glad that we did, because I don't know about you guys, but I would love to have a doctor that cares that much to care for me, right? Yeah. So thank you for that. So, Mr. Fulton, somewhat similar. Tell us about your upbringing and how you ended up at the University of Michigan Law School and your work there. I know that you worked on some Indian-centric items there, and how that sort of shaped your thoughts process and then coming into IHS.
Well, appreciate it. First, I will highlight back to our video. I will note that it did say 274. It was made last November when we originally planned the ceremony in early December. So just like today, being on the fly, it's a changing and evolving world. So I would highlight that for our Lumbee friends, that this was made several months ago. Now for me, I'm a product of eastern Oklahoma, born through and through just south of the town of Muskogee, a little place called Oaktal, thriving population of 300 on a good day. And grew up down there where, my family had lived since they left Adair County in the Depression. But right there on the border between the Cherokee and Muskogee reses, where, grew up. Right there, grandparents lived 100 yards down the road, and we had a lot of that multi-generational living, and, was very tied to that. But I definitely knew I wanted to do something different. Dad's a truck driver, grandpa's a truck driver, great-grandpa, not a truck driver, mechanic, but you know what I mean? But that we were just a very working class, family, and I knew from working on cars that I want to do whatever it took to have a job that I didn't have to work on my own car anymore, because I was tired of fixing old beaters. And so that's what started it. And so I graduated there in Oaktal and went to NSU there in Tahlequah. For those of you who may have worked at the Tahlequah Service Unit over the years, which was originally founded as the Cherokee Female Seminary, and then later transferred into a full-fledged university. So I went to the regional state school, and then came back the one county over, and was working in Muskogee County, was working rural telecom, bringing connectivity products, and thought, maybe I don't want to live in Muskogee County my entire life. So I applied, went to law school, went to Michigan, supposedly pretty decent, but what I really appreciated about it was they had a robust offering in Indian law courses. And that had been one of the big drivers to think that of going into working on Indian law issues. Was about this time, it was 2018, 2019, and there was a little case percolating in the 10th Circuit there that was called Carpenter v. Murphy, and none of you have ever heard of it. But it basically was the predecessor to what later became McGirt v. Oklahoma. And it was essentially looking at whether the reservations in eastern Oklahoma had ever been disestablished, and whether all of the eastern half of the state and everywhere I had ever lived was or was not intact reservations that our fathers had fought for. And I was like, man, if this comes out the way it's held right now, this is going to completely change the way we handle criminal justice, the way we approach healthcare, how we tackle issues, taxes, etc. The world was going to be endless and change. And it was really my hope to be a useful tool if that happened, to seize that moment, to make sure the place I loved continued to flourish. And so I went to, but knew I didn't necessarily thought I didn't want to be in Muskogee County my whole life. went to law school and immediately took about one semester and was like, man, I really want to go home. I spent all that time trying to leave, and now I want to go home. But I had a great experience there at Michigan, got to take lots of great courses. One of my favorites was a course that specifically, they called a problem-solving initiative. And so what they did is they pulled in a multidisciplinary approach. So it was a law student, it was a master's of social work. One of my good friends that we currently work on things with over at EPA, she was looking at environmental policy. And they pulled us together, and each time you were given a specific problem or issue to address. And this is shortly after McGirt had come out. And ours was, hey, we would like you 3 graduate students to look at and solve the jurisdictional maze in Indian country in criminal justice. Yeah, right. Like we were going to figure that one out. But, you know, being from Eastern Oklahoma, being very connected, it was a great experience because it was that interdisciplinary approach where each one of us was looking at the same problem, but bringing in different lenses, whether it was education, approaching it from a social work issue, how do we share resources, how would you solve this? You know, and many tribes looked at this, the different groups looked at it different ways, but, you know, mine was probably Eastern Oklahoma focused, obviously, you know, because of my bias, but it was that first approach to what does interdisciplinary problem solving really look like? And I basically got to do that. Graduated law school, moved back home, took a job at the Muskogee Nation, and that's exactly what I did. It's the same thing there. I was an attorney there for the tribe, and I jokingly said we didn't work in the law department, we worked in the problem department. Anytime a problem got too hard for whatever department was working on it, they pawned it off on us and be like, this has nothing to do with the law. But it was that same attempt to work together, to cooperate, to say, what can we, do we have resources? How do we make these work? How do we work not only within the tribe, but how do we partner with state officials? I worked on a lot of criminal justice issues. And time again, we ran into the impact of, we were dealing with people incarcerated. We probably had the busiest tribal court in the entire country. And you know what the number one issue I fought with our local county partners on was? How are we going to get health care to these people? We were paying the bill, but it was figuring out that mechanism. And these are all natives, but figuring out how are we going to impact, how are we going to get those people on there, how are we going to turn most of them onto the road to recovery? What does that look like? And the complete disconnect that existed between our criminal justice arms and the healthcare arm of the tribe in the same organization. They're not that far apart, but distance-wise, and there was still a mass disconnect. And what opportunities there were to make impacts and change lives. And that's what I loved about my job. And so eventually I got the call, and somebody called me, and they're like, hey, would you like to interview for at IHS? It's like, sure, sounds fun. I have no idea what job I'm interviewing for. They're like, great, we'll have somebody call you Tuesday, 2 o'clock. Great, you know. And while I wasn't a healthcare expert, you know, I had dealt with self-governance, grants, et cetera, and had a great interview and just talked about, you know, the things that were going on in my community, the issues we were working on. And half my interview actually had nothing to do with healthcare direct, but it was just talking about the intersection of the things and how tribes were tackling problems and what that looked like on the ground with the work we were doing. And they said, great, send your resume to this place and we'll be in touch. And then crickets. About 10 weeks go by and I get a random email like, hey, we'd like to offer you a job. It's like, oh, well, thanks. It's lovely. But, and so I was very much excited to come on and join the team and bring some of that fresh insight to say, hey, you know, a lot of our previous leadership, a lot of them come through the system. So it's been a very interesting experience to come as somebody who's coming from the tribal space, who's coming from advising tribal leaders, to make that step into being on the other side. The worst part is I can't complain anymore. That was the best part about being a tribal attorney, be like, oh, the federal government, you know, if they would do X, Y, Z, Q, life would be good around here. And now I'm in the hot seat, all those things I was pawning off. But that's kind of my journey and how I ended up back here at IHS and doing the work alongside the crew here to try to make a difference and make sure that we're setting up and we're thinking interdisciplinary, we're tackling hard issues and using partnerships to try to advance things forward.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, we can give it applause for it. So
Gone
Well,
bad
yeah,
taste.
I know both of you have been here now for a while, so you know the government now. Hurry up and wait. We all know how that process goes. But we look forward to, as the rank and file, to working with you guys to help promote the initiatives and the things that you would like to do while you're at IHS. And thank you. So that kind of goes into my second question for you, Dr. Hartwig. So you have been recently, Secretary Kennedy talked about the new initiative that IHS is doing, which is to expedite the elimination of amalgam fillings, and I know that has been initiative that you've been working on very diligently behind the scenes on that. So can you tell us a little bit about your approach to healing and what you believe that needs to happen in Indian country moving forward?
Sure. Let me not take credit for the mercury amalgam phase out entirely, because the team has been working on that for a number of years. I believe since 2007, IHS has been phasing that out. What we did was we expedited the timeline. So just want to give credit where credit's due. We did get the backing from Secretary Kennedy to push that forward and phase out with a heavy emphasis on prevention by the end of this year. But the IHS team has been doing that for a bit. So just want to give that recognition. I believe that the healing, and I've had several conversations today about, from a clinical standpoint, what true healing in Indian country looks like. And several of the panelists that have spoke before me also identified and actually are doing this in their communities. So it really is an exciting time to see the tide change from reaction in medicine to a pause, which we really a lot of us aren't comfortable with that. We have grown up in our communities, and speaking from my upbringing specifically, really we go from crisis to crisis. And that sense of necessity and action in our bodies, in our nervous systems, we're most comfortable in, because that chaos we grew up in. And so pausing to reflect on what we truly need to heal and not be reactive. And the medicine correlate, in my mind, is treating a symptom. You come in with with back pain. Well, here's some Tylenol or ibuprofen. Okay, well, what are you treating? You need to do an evaluation to find out what's causing the back pain. Is it a muscle strain? Is it a disc issue? Is it a nerve that's pinched? Is it what's the cause of that underlying pain? And that's what we need to treat, not just the symptom. And that's what we need to do with healthcare in Indian country, is not treat symptoms. And I was taught that substance use, for example, use disorder, for example, it is a disease. And through my own healing journey and my growth and understanding of trauma, and we've heard trauma-informed care a lot today, epigenetics is the transmission of an experience in our genes from our ancestors. That passage of the trauma and hurt we all experience, even if we didn't personally experience it. One of the things at my clinic at home was when the ACE survey came out. So ACE's Adverse Childhood Events survey came out. Everybody was like, we need to screen for ACEs. Everybody needs to be screened for ACEs. And I said, okay, so we screen, and then what? We need to think, 5 or 6 steps down the treatment path, not just screening, because we tell somebody, oh, your ACE score is an 8, and then go on to the next patient. That's not acceptable care. We really need to evaluate and understand that somebody who uses substances really is self-medicating. They're treating themselves to get away from their harms or their hurts that either they've experienced or their family has experienced, that it's not something that they're just choosing to do, that is a symptom. So the true healing that we need to do really stems not only from our own incidents or experiences that have harmed us, but also from our ancestors' incidents. And I have come to believe that my ancestors only knew how to be Nimipu. They only knew how to be Nez Perce. And but when they were too Nez Perce, they were harmed. And so they were confused and fearful about what to teach the subsequent generations because of what they experienced. And each subsequent generation was taught less and less because of that protective mechanism. And the protection worked because I'm here, but at a cost. And that's the true healing that we need to, one, identify, but then also collaboratively heal by being able to be who Creator made us to be.
I love that. Thank you so much. And for you, Mr. Fulton, so tell us a little bit about working with Secretary Kennedy, sort of his philosophy and how you're carrying that forward into Indian country, and somewhat of your experiences, how you've now been out into Indian country and gotten to meet some of our tribal leaders and urban Indian partners just out in the field. How's that been for you so far?
Oh, absolute honor of a lifetime. It has been a blast. It's always my favorite thing. Those of you that were budget consultation yesterday heard me say it. Engaging with tribes is some of my favorite. Getting to work with partners, hear the variety of experiences, cultures, communities. As much as I love talking to Ben every day, some variety in getting out of the office is my favorite part. He gets in trouble again because he's sitting in the front. But it has been a blast, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And working on the Secretary, and specifically the Maha movement, has been great because they're asking those hard questions. Instead of just approaching what does an experience look like from the moment you enter a clinic to the moment you exit a clinic, it's looking at what are those things that ultimately drive the long-term goal, which is to eliminate the health disparities in our community, to look at the things that are shortening our lifespans by 10 or 11 years compared to our peers elsewhere in society, asking those hard questions. Is it mercury amalgams leaching to kids? Is it the stress of unresolved things that we need to tackle with behavioral health? Is it putting good food into our communities? You know, I think about when I visit my in-laws and, we go to Thanksgiving and it's like, whatever you order, whatever you're bringing, you better make sure you've got it with you, because if you forget that can of green beans, you're out of luck. The nearest Walmart is 2 hours that way from Snow America. And, but how do we produce good food? How do we put that in there? And I thought, and so when, they first reached out to me and they were like, how do you feel about Maha? I was like, it matches exactly what was always the approach. I didn't realize it at the time, but the things that my grandpa was teaching me. The man had congestive heart failure for 15 years, but every year he was out there building a garden. And he was tilling it, and it probably wasn't much bigger than the space it was. But it is a thing that he had learned from his parents and his grandparents. And it was something that we did together multi-generationally. And, because it was about putting those fresh fruits and vegetables. And so that was the highlight of my every summer was, when the cucumbers and tomatoes came in, those with salt and pepper, and me and the old man, we would eat those, all the time. But it was a lesson that we were learning that he had learned years ago from his grandfathers that were farmers, and was passing on, and I had no idea at the time. But how much those kind of actions impact the way we approach food, what we put into our bodies, and what happens in those early stages of life that teach us those good lessons that carry on and reap benefits for years. And an unrelated story. While he loved his vegetables, the man, you could not give him to eat sweet potatoes. I was like, I like sweet potatoes. They're good food. And he tells me a story about it was late Depression, so mid-30s. He was a kid, and he goes out to his grandpa's allotment in Adair County, and he's staying out there for the summer, and he's like, yeah, they put out this dish. It's the best looking thing I had. It's beautiful, nice sweet potatoes, good looking meat, all cooked. He said, I took my first bite and I nearly lost it right there at the table. Grandma says, what's wrong with you, boy? You don't like possum? He said, that greasy possum ruined sweet potatoes for the rest of my life. I never saw him eat one, and no matter how much you tried, he would not because of that experience right there. But it just goes to show that teaching good lessons early on and those habits and things that you develop, they last a lifetime. And so while they may not drop the IHS clinical budget and what we have to do today, we're making strategic investments that reap long-term ROI. And I think that approach is what we need in order to really heal and drive in those long-term issues that have been plaguing our communities for generations.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a great story. I think about my own grandparents that have now passed, as many of ours have, and they were beekeepers, and they had honey on the table every meal. There was a little honey pot. And when I was a kid, I didn't really understand the value of that. I just thought they were weird because they had honey on the table all the time. But what I wouldn't give now to sit down and have a meal with them and have some honey, right? And so back to basics and that good food that goes into our body. So that's a good story. I'm going to finish up with, this is going to be for both of you guys, and so think about this. Very proud of our individual nations. We are a family all together as relatives, but we've all got our individual identities. So either one, this is you can do, either tell me somebody who is a hero to you from your tribal history, past or present, or if somebody is visiting your tribal area, what is some place or something they should do or visit while they're there, and why? And Mr. Fulton, I'll start with you.
Man, back to back. Okay, well, I will take the event one because I think it's much simpler. But I will tell you, if you find yourself in the big city of Tahlequah, Oklahoma, one day, shoot for the peak time, midsummer. It's about 105. Nice and humid and absolutely miserable. And you load up and you drive, 15 miles outside of town, and you drop into the beautiful Illinois River, or, Bering Fork Creek if you're really willing to go out there, and drop in and just float the river. And you sit out there and you look at the beautiful rolling green hills and countryside. And it's incredible, and you just float your way down and enjoy the peace and the calm. I think it is probably one of my favorite things to do in Cherokee County. I absolutely love it. I will take the privilege of telling a second story. So I had grown up in eastern Oklahoma my whole life, right up not far from Tahlequah, which is the Cherokee capital, and, whatever. And so I was probably a teenager, and then finally, we went on a road trip. So we road tripped across the South, and we're going down because we didn't fly anywhere. I don't think I was on an airplane until I was an adult. But because my dad was a driver, so that's what we did all the time. And so we're like, oh, let's stop in Cherokee, North Carolina. So we drop in. I had never been out to there. And I was like, get out. All the signs are in syllabary, and there's rolling green hills and a beautiful river running through the middle of it. And I was like, are we in Tahlequah? I know I've been asleep, but what happened? But you realize how much, specifically with the removal of Cherokee, how much they really just were looking for somewhere that was similar to home. And how impactful that journey was. I'd been receiving the benefits for years, but it never had occurred to me just the variety of impact and how much, even then, all the traumatic experiences, they were finding somewhere that was like home, and they were rebuilding so much that had been lost. And, thinking of the river, it just brought me to that second story that I thought I'd make a plug for.
I've got a good Illinois River story, but I'll tell you later about that. So, Dr. Hartwig, the same question for you. Something that you've had a little bit of time to think about it. What's something that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I think if you ever get up to God's country, right?
Tahlequah, America.
Yeah, right. I'll ask this woman right here in front, Miss. Can you? Yeah, she's Nimipu too. Rachel Edwards. She's on our executive council for our tribe. So if you ever get up to God's country, there's just so much. Our reservation is just off of, so our treaty allows us to hunt, fish, gather on our traditional and accustomed lands, which are comprised of southeastern Washington, northeastern Oregon, most of Idaho, and parts of Montana. So when I think about, coming to our lands, there's not a specific place. There is so much beauty, and it's really difficult. I'm also part Navajo, and there's beauty in the Southwest, but being raised in the Northwest with all of the evergreens and the clean water and the rivers and salmon, and it's just really hard to appreciate other beauty. I do, but not as much. But we just have so many miles of beauty. I think that I would encourage you to drive east on Highway 12 from Lapway over Lolo Pass into Montana, along the Selway and Lochsaw rivers that are just pristine and amazingly gorgeous.
Excellent. I appreciate it. And that's an area that I have not had an opportunity to visit, and it's great country yet. That looking forward to doing that. So I'll just look you up when we come up there. We'll go salmon fishing. Okay, back to you, Mr. Fulton. And before I say that, I want to recognize our staff who is handing out our 70th anniversary cake back there. So thank you guys for working so hard behind the scenes this entire conference today, and they're doing that right now. But Mr. Fulton, yeah, let's give them a hand. As we close up this conference, I was going to say, do you have any final thoughts for today?
First, that is Maha approved cake. I promise, I checked. See, it's right there at it's really small, but it is at the top of the pyramid there, so have as much as you want. But no, on that note, I just want to say thank you. I know sacrificing a day of your lives to spend it with us in celebration is not an easy thing. Many of you are in high demand in your communities, at your jobs, elsewhere in IHS, and I appreciate you spending the time with us. And as I mentioned this morning, it's an incredible celebration of how far we've come. But now is the next great opportunity. For much of the concerns of IHS, we've been talking about how does IHS survive? Will it get cut? But I think this is a moment where we can pivot from just survival and making it by to finding ways to thrive and achieve, to move from just tribal self-determination to tribal innovation. Because we know that much of the good work is happening at all levels. And we are here to partner with you. We ask that you partner with us. Help us figure out what we can do together to navigate this system, to achieve the kind of results that we want to see in our communities. That's our goal, and I know it's your goal too. So I applaud you all for being here. Thank you, and if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know.
And thank you. Please give a hand for Dr. Kim Hartwig, Mr. Clayton Fulton. Thank you so much for being here. We have a reception, and what the time of the reception is? No. Oh, okay, sorry. So this wraps up for the afternoon. Yep. Okay, we're good. Wherever you're going this evening and for tomorrow, safe travels, and we appreciate you, all of you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.